Hello, History 3553. This is your TA Jan Kush, and today we're going over the Battle of Gettysburg. So let's get started. Why do we care about Gettysburg? And kind of just a brief introduction to the Battle of Gettysburg. It's a battle during the Civil War in the south central part of Pennsylvania. It's a 3-day battle. It's accidental. It's not planned for either side to fight there. They just kind of find each other there. The real key here is to understand that the Union holds the high ground and is going to win this battle. And that on the other side, the Confederate side, Lee's tactical and strategic disorder leads to his defeat. So why do we care about this battle? It's the deadliest battle in U.S. history. Over 40,000 soldiers will die during this battle, and quite a bit more will die after from wounds sustained. And in fact, one of the follow-ons of the Civil War is the development of the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, that we still have today. And Professor Kelly has done a book and research on. The other thing is Gettysburg really is a national battle. Soldiers from Minnesota to Maine and every state in the North were there and died there. Soldiers from the Confederacy all the way from Texas and Arkansas all the way to Virginia and Florida and everywhere in between were there and died there. Literally men from every single state were killed in this battle. It's truly a national battle. So I'm not going to go real deep into the weeds and on this, but you do need to understand that during the Civil War, military technology has advanced greatly from the American Revolution or even the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. And just understand that the rifles and cannons used at the Battle of Gettysburg and in the Civil War in general are much deadlier. And another important thing is the ammunition they use is much deadlier. As I've alluded to, the ammunition, especially for the rifles, basically the ammunition would be fired and would hit a soldier and would literally splinter. The bullet would splinter in a body. And so that's why there were so many amputations in the Civil War, is because you would have just all these little bits of bullet floating around a human body, which is very deadly. And so the numbers we give are just the deaths at the battlefield. It doesn't include what is likely tens of thousands dying from wounds several weeks or months later because of the ammunition. Don't need to know this, so put your pens down for this one. But you want to impress your friends as a Civil War historian, or you just want to be a step ahead of the game, please understand that bayonet charges are basically a myth. Less than 1% of all casualties of Civil War from a bayonet. So even though there's a bayonet charge, I think, in every single Civil War movie I've ever seen, that is just pure Hollywood. It's not the real life. But you got to get that close-up of Denzel and Matthew Broderick. So you got to put them in a bayonet charge. Never happens. Rarely happens. Now, grab your pen and paper back up, because the last point is key: the importance of the high ground. There's a reason we have a nickname, King of the Hill. Who's ever on top of the hill has a better chance of winning the battle. Almost every Civil War battlefield you go to, there are hills, because that is what they were fighting over, the high ground. Whoever holds the high ground is most likely to win the battle. Okay, so we're in summer of 63, and Lee's, I'm just going to talk real briefly about this. Lee has a victory at a place called Chancellorsville. It's probably the most stunning victory in the Civil War by the Confederacy. Whole books are written about this, but just understand the key to this, two keys to this. One, because Lee wins this battle, the Union troops basically huddle back towards Washington. They stop invading Virginia and they kind of huddle near Washington. So it opens the door for him to invade Pennsylvania, which he's going to do at the Battle of Gettysburg. The other key is the loss of a person called General Stonewall Jackson. This is a very famous Confederate general. It's Lee's right-hand man. It's the person who brings order to Lee's plans. Jackson can implement them and bring order to the battlefield and help the Confederates to victory. The loss of him, the loss of Lee's right-hand man, is going to be critical at Gettysburg. So Lee's won Chancellorsville. He's pushed the Union soldiers back to Washington, D.C. Why does he decide to invade the North again? Why is he going to march his troops 100 miles north into Northern Territory? Well, one, he wants to stop fighting in Virginia. The farms and the railroads and the towns of Northern Virginia are decimated. And so Lee wants to move the fighting away from there so they can hopefully recover. There's a hope that if he wins a big battle in Northern Territory, the British will recognize the Confederacy. It's probably not going to happen, but Lee's a gambler. He's gambling for this chance. Additionally, if he can win a big enough battle in Northern Territory, near Philadelphia, near New York City, maybe Lincoln will come to the peace table. The people will rise up against Lincoln and force Lincoln to the peace talks. Again, not a lot of good evidence for this in the history, but again, Lee is a gambler, and at this point in the war, it's very clear that he is losing the war. The Confederacy is losing the war. Lee's winning the battles, but they're losing the war, and so Lee's rolling for those lucky sevens. He's hoping to win a victory and hopefully change the dynamics of the war. He has to do something. He knows if he stays in Virginia, they're just going to wear him down, and eventually the South will lose. So he has one last chance, one last gamble, and he does this. But there's no real strategic vision for Lee, and that leads to strategic disorder, which will lead to tactical disorder, which is how he usually defeats the Union. The Union is usually disordered, but Lee, in this case, going north, will be the one in disorder, especially without his right-hand man. A little side note is that in between Lee's plans and the Battle of Gettysburg, the Union changes generals. Lee beats General Hooker at Chancellorsville quite handily, so he thinks he can do it again. And it's not until Gettysburg that he realizes he's fighting a different general for the Union, and the Union makes the right choice. And we have a good photo of General Meade leading the Union Army of the Potomac there at the bottom. Not exactly a looker, not exactly full of charisma, but he's willing to fight. He's a fighter, and he keeps his wits about him on the battlefield. And quite frankly, he's an underrated tactician. People always say Lee lost the Battle of Gettysburg. I think there's some case to be made that Meade also wins the Battle of Gettysburg. So this is a real dynamic change. Okay. So we're going to stop there, and I'm going to cut this first section here, and we're going to get into the actual battle itself.